Right, thank you, Professor. So now we know why developing countries want to adopt special economic zone. Now, from Professor's information, there are two reasons. One is to attract foreign direct investment, or FDI. The second is the technology. Now, in order to attract the foreign direct investment, developing countries really need to soften or relax the rules and regulations inside the zone, so then the foreign investors will feel comfortable in bringing their resources to the developing country. And also in that, will also bring technology into the developing country as well. Now, the second thing is, in order to foreign direct investment, a lot of developing countries think they can just copy and paste the successful example, so then the developing country itself will also be successful in the special economic zone. But as Professor explained, not a great idea, because each developing nation's culture, experience, situation, and condition are all different. So it is a big no-no to have to copy and paste the exact special economic zone from others and hoping that you'll become successful. So wow, I can actually see there's a lot of questions coming in. Thank you very much. Keep posting your queries. So now let's move on. So Professor, can you tell us what are the factors of a successful special economic zone? Yeah, because I understand, as you mentioned as well, because China has a huge success on the special economic zone to boost up its economy. A lot of Asian countries, developing countries, which I'm not going to name, they're trying to copy and paste straight away. But isn't to have one of the factors to have a successful special economic zone is its infrastructure. As of course you mentioned it as well. I've seen some research mentioned, again, I'm not going to mention which country. They set up a special economic zone, but the rules are still quite similar to the domestic rules. And also the road, the railway, the port, poorly built, not really suitable to handle a large number of foreign companies. So say if this happens, how should they, improve?
First and the most important tool is tax incentives themselves. Secondly, you can design SEZs according to the requirements of the new industries that you really want to attract. So you can have sector-specific SEZs, for instance, and then you can provide all the facilities to promote those new industries, because new industries require new setup, new technologies, new instruments to promote. So there you can actually test and see how you can do that.
So we understand that not all the SEZ success is a successful one. So is there any key factors that the government really need to tune on and install in their SEZ scheme in order to have a successful one?
Look, there are two different things here. One is the overall SEZ scheme, and the other one is the success of a particular zone. Now, if I start with success of a particular zone, then there are 4 layers of factors. They are international, national, then there are meso factors and micro factor. So international means that there has to be demand, because these are export oriented. So if the world is in recession, then it's very difficult to make your special economic. So first is that. Secondly, your national policies should make sure that the economy has export competitiveness. If there is inflation in the economy, if the cost of production is very high in the economy, for any reason, if the cost of trading is high in the economy, then exports cannot happen. So second, the third is the regional factors, which we just talked about, that there should be proper connectivity outside of SEZs. Also, the environment should change, and that should be aligned to what it is in SEZs, and supporting industries should be there. And then you have microclimate. Microclimate is about the facilitation that you are offering to businesses
Yeah.
within the SEZs.
Yeah. Yeah.
So all these factors together determine whether you can be a successful SEZ or not. Just one factor I would like to also mention, that this SEZ should be, it should actually be based on the comparative advantage of the region.
Yeah.
So that's a very important factor here. So, but if you take the kind of broader regime, I think that there are three pillars of the success. First, you have to strategize your overall SEZ policy and align that with the domestic development policy.
Yeah.
So whatever is the strategy you are following for industrialization in developing economies, you should know how to place special economic zones within that strategy. This is the first major point that one must notice. The second one is that there should be an implementation strategy, how to implement your special economic zones successfully. So then you have to take into account several factors, like whether the people who are, whether the stakeholders where this special economic zones are located, they are in favor of special economic zones or not. So stakeholder management is important. Then human resource management is important. The people who are implementing this program, are they really capable of doing that? So they need to have some sort of training.
Yeah.
They should have some sort of incentives, some accountability. So these are the important things. Then macroeconomic management is important. Then you have to have international initiatives like international agreements that you can go for. So there is a whole gamut of factors.
So many
factors. And then finally you always have to see when to transition. Your earlier question I would come to. So there should be a continuous upgrading of special economic zones if you want to keep them alive and successful. So this is not merely creating a piece of land as infrastructure, but strategizing that within the kind of broader development goals and strategies.
I think it's quite a pity for some countries who really have a good and successful special economic zone, but then they stay there forever and they just continue the same way over and over for the past 20, 30 years, and they're not improving anything. Do you have any suggestion for them?
Yeah, my suggestion is that close them up.
Close them up? Really?
Yes, and instead try industrial estates, ordinary industrial estates, because it is important not to put a lot of money in those propositions, because if lots of financial resources are transferred to these zones without any success, as we have seen, or the revenue is lost without any success, then the other sectors of the economy, they are affected adversely. So we actually should develop more of open industrial estates with facilitation. So instead of really facilitating these smaller spaces, we facilitate some larger spaces with also the domestic companies there. So if you are not successful, then try to really see that your resources are more efficiently allocated and used.
Now, I understand that one of the special economic zone structure is cross-border, meaning two nations collaborate each other rather than compete, but cooperate. That's one good way to look at it. But what if the two countries are very close to each other, they have its own special economic zone very close to each other, and they are trying to compete with each other? How are you going to deal with that?
Actually, that's what is very important to understand, that special economic zones are like, two-way sword.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, you try to have regional cooperation through cross-border zones, but at the same time, all these countries have their national zones where they are competing for FDI. And for that, they are actually they are involved in a race to bottom. So then in that case, it is very difficult to really use, and this is the reason why many cross-border zones are not successful, because every country wants to protect its own regime, and then they want to really attract a lot of FDI in their national SEZs. So it takes a lot to really promote these cross-border zones or even growth areas.
Yeah. Now, there's the key factors for the success of SEZ, which you mentioned about, more looking at the national or as one country zone. Now, if you have a cross-border special economic zone, what factors will two or more countries need to think about before they start that, and how it can be successful?
That's a very interesting and very important question actually, because the same factors are not really applicable here. Yeah. This is because this is about regional special economic zone. This is not about national zone. And for that, I think the most important factor is that the two regional governments where the SEZs is set up, those governments should come together. And there should be, in many cases, let me just give you some examples. For instance, like you see there are very different patterns in the world for this kind of development. And this development is not peculiar to Asia, first of all, we must understand. Now, if we start with the US, then US, we know that is a market-based economy where the government is not really getting into micromanagement issues. So, America and Canadian cross-border zones, even if they are not delineated areas, the areas on borders, they actually have developed using this bottom-up approach. This is because these were the local governments there that made efforts to come together and facilitate the movement of people and economic activity. So these were the local government's initiative and local people's initiative that developed those areas. Now, if you look at Europe, they actually had this program of cross-border zones again, because this is a common market, but they wanted to develop cross-border cooperation as well. So there actually they had a particular program initiated under which the governments of those local areas, they were brought together and they actually promoted a kind of social cohesion. This I think was very important. So like there were, in some cases, there was even joint parliament.
Joint parliament?
Yes, in the region, which was taking decision for those particular areas. And then they decided to have schools, common health facilities, so people could move. So this is the way people got together. They could identify themselves as, I mean, this became an identity for them, being in that region. And this was very helpful when they promoted economic activities in that region. So this was a top-down approach.
Of course.
But then the idea through top-down approach was that people get together. The governments, local governments know how to work together and cooperate. Now, if we come to Asia or Africa, there normally these are not the local initiatives. These are the initiatives by the third intergovernmental agencies. So it is like the ADB, which is trying to promote such areas in Asia, and it is African Development Bank, which is trying to do that in Africa. So in that case, I think the primary responsibility or the first step is to really have that, the regional cooperation, not right away for economic activity, but social integration of governments, of people, and integration of the governments. So there should be some sort of cohesion in the governance, in the rules, because it is very important that there is harmonization of rules. May not be homogenization, but harmonization of the rules should be there in the region. Otherwise, it's very difficult to really get the two regions together if they follow very different rules. So if you create that identity of the region, and if you have some sort of joint councils or governing that or whatever, some joint body which can actually harmonize the rules, because they are special economic zones. And the purpose of special economic zones is to have different rules. So there you are allowed. So just forget about all your country rules and then just have this kind of regional government where you can actually have common rules. Or not even homogenized, but homogenized rule. And I think this will be a very important way, first step to really move into domestic.
It's like an experiment, like how it works.
Yes, so this is an experiment, and I think this experiment then later on can spread to other parts of those. So, and that can be very helpful for regional cooperation. So as of now, I would say that there is a lot of competition. I come back to your original question. There is a lot of competition, and special economic zones actually in that sense are not very helpful in promoting regional cooperation. But if we really try to promote these common zones and these growth areas, and I think that will be very important, a very important step in the direction of promoting regional cooperation. And I would say that ADB is really making a lot of efforts, huge efforts are being made to bring and to really develop those joint councils and make them work together. So I really wish that these initiatives are successful.